ABC, ABC. That song's stuck in my head. Hey, it's Romania Black. Yeah. So yesterday I started watching the dub of Uramichi Oniisan. I made it through episode 6, and then I had to stop because I wanted to go ahead and record this episode. But I'm pretty excited that now I can watch 7, 8, 9, and 10 after this week. The dub is great, by the way. The English dub is a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying it. It's been wonderful. I highly recommend. It's a great time. I was worried in the dub about the translation of some of the jokes, but they actually make it work really well. And there's a lot of familiar faces. If you've watched the English dub for Skate the Infinity, there's a lot of actors in that series that are in this one. For example, the voice actor for Joe, I'm pretty sure is the voice actor for Usahara, and it's hilarious once you receive the voice connection. And also, Oni, who is the choreographer, he is played by David Wald, who plays Adam in Skate the Infinity, who is part of the LGBTQ plus community as well. So I think that that's very fitting that they're playing that character. So I want to talk real quick. HBanana7 made a comment back several episodes ago. I think it was for episode 6, talking about how Oni is a new updated term for Okama, which was referring to an effeminate, quote unquote, an effeminate gay man. However, Okama had a lot of derogatory meaning behind it, and Oni is kind of the updated term for that, Oni referring to Oniisan. And I like that they pointed out this is kind of a sign of Japanese culture, which has been comparatively, but we can't say it's just Japanese culture, all over the world, comparatively slower on the uptake of accepting and respecting people in the LGBTQ plus community. And I'm happy that those strides are being made, because it can be difficult realizing, especially with Japanese language, that, you know, talking about pronouns and things like that, language barriers are a thing, and so it can be hard. But I'm glad that there are terminology and things that are being more respectful and being more open-minded to people in this community, because they exist. They are here, and it's good to be recognized and given proper agency. So I thought that was really cool. So thank you, HBanana, for pointing that out. This season, I'm really sad that we've got 4 episodes left. We have 10, 11, 12, and 13. I'm glad we have a 13th episode. Of course we have a 13th episode for Oniisan, right? It's just... lucky number 13, right? But I'm glad we have 4 episodes left. We have a month left with Uramichi Oniisan, and I'm super excited about it. I really needed this show, and I definitely find myself, if I'm having a bad day or I have a bad interaction with somebody, whether it's at work or on the channel, I just think of this show, and I think of Uramichi, and I'm just like, I think of the tambourine going over my face and being like, oh, I'm done with this. It's so applicable. It's such an applicable show to adulthood, and the English dub captures it just as much as the Japanese sub does. So I highly recommend watching both. That way you get both of the existential crisis enjoyment out of this series. So that's really nice. But I actually wasn't going to watch it this afternoon, but I thought, you know what? I kind of want something nice and sweet to watch this afternoon, and this seemed to be hitting the spot. So let's not waste any more time, shall we? I'm super excited. I hope you all are as well. But we're going to start life lessons with Uramichi Oniisan episode 10 and see what we get, y'all. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's do it. Let's give it up for Kumatani, shall we? Man, yeah, so, for a hot second before we got that after credit scene, I was a little bit worried that Kumatani was quitting and that he was going to leave, and I was like, no, because I like the idea of the message being, we'll talk about it in this episode, but Kumatani reined himself in, but was like, this is a bit ridiculous. And it's a little bit like, we talk about harassment. We're going to talk about harassment in this as well. But he's like, this is a bit stupid and we shouldn't be doing this. So Kumatani like skyrocketed on my list this week of characters that I really, really like. The Long Hot Summer video. Oh my God. The fact that they did all of this work in frigid temperatures and it like had the green screen little like blur around them. It wasn't even necessary. There was nothing about this music video that invoked the beach that you couldn't have shot indoors on a set and used a green screen or CGI. There was nothing. It was all like, it's almost insulting how much of this did not rely upon them being on the beach. I just love seeing them just freezing. We can have a barbecue and pretend to have fun so nobody can tell that I spend my life worried what other people think. That line got me so hard. That line is ridiculous. And then, yeah, the close-up on Usahara. And they're like, this act doesn't suit me. Well, here it comes. I love that Utano is like left-hand shark from the Katy Perry Super Bowl. I love that she's just flouncing around. Better start acting dumber. The long, hot summer. And then she's the sun. I did like the little shot of them all swimming. That was super cute. And Kumatani's like the mermaid. And then the face-to-face close-up with Usahara and Uramichi where he sprays him in the face. I love the editing jump cut is, they're like, the truth is, I want someone to say it. And then they show, like, Uramichi like, yeah! And Usahara getting punched. Oh my god, it's okay to spend the summer in a dark room with the AC on. Yeah, it's like that is the one thing about summer. I love summer a lot because of my work schedule, but temperature-wise, I'm like, there's nothing wrong with staying inside with the air conditioner on. Let's be real. Than being outside in the heat. I do love Miyano Mamoru, like, Ikateru's, like, little waisty, like, hip movements. I'm like, yes, please. Like, it looks really just swaying back and forth. It's super cute. And then they're all just revolving around Kumatani, and they're like, skip the darn music festivals. And I lost sight of the mosquito, and now I can't get to sleep. Oh my god. Hilarious. Yeah, most of this you didn't even need to have them on the beach. Now, the beach volleyball scene, I like that Ikateru, like, sets it up, and then Uramichi spikes it down like an opposite. Yes, please. And then, of course, it gets on. I like that it gets onto Kumata. It just knocks Usahara out, and his head just spins around. I love it. Hilarious. And then they talk about my shirt's gross and sweaty, and it's such a huge bummer. And then Uramichi's not paying attention, and Usahara, like, bumps him, and then there's the fireworks. The long, hot summer. And it ends with them just looking just cracked out. And all of them are just like, really? Really? That was such a terrible day, and we had to live through it. But it can't possibly get worse. It's not like our director's going to make us go out into the heat to do a music video shoot that's winter themed. All of their faces, they're just like, no, 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 no. This is a terrible idea. Why would we do this? And the thing that sucks about it is this did feel like the director was just torturing them, because at least with the winter shoot, the beach shoot, it was because the choreographer and the video editor was on a schedule and he wanted to have it done by summer, so he had them shoot it early. But here, there is no reason for them to do a winter shoot. They're like, why don't we do it inside with fake snow? And they're like, well, we're gonna use CGI. They're like, then why don't we do it inside and just add the CGI? And they're like, it's for effect. It's like, there was no reason for them to be out in the heat. There was none. Not one reason. And Kumatani's like, I gotta be in this bear suit the entire time. No, thank you. So yeah, SUBZERO spiral. I do like the idea that the spiral representing Kumatani just being like, no, I've had enough. I thought it would be Uramichi that would spiral and have like a breaking point, but... And I think that Kumatani kind of gets away with it too. One, because he wasn't unreasonable in being objectively like over it. He didn't actually violently hurt anybody. But also I feel like Kumatani is the calm, cool, and collected character of the group. He's the most adjusted of the group. So the fact that he's the one that breaks and snaps, I think tells the director like, oh, maybe I need to rein it in a little bit before the rest of my crew lose their mind. And it's like, yeah, maybe, possibly. But yeah, I love the idea of the eggs and the steak falling and instantly sizzling. A lot of people might ask why the woman's wearing gloves, but as somebody that wears like a long sleeve shirt sometimes out in the heat, it's to protect your skin. And Utano kind of says things to you. She's like, oh, I got a sunburn even though I was out in the heat for a little bit. And it's like, yeah, sun care is important. But yeah, the director's sitting there fanning themselves with a fan on them. And the cicadas are buzzing like this. I can feel it right now. And Uramichi's like, atmosphere, no. And they're like, well, when we have outdoor scenes, I think only using CGI is taking the easy way out. But it's like, you're mostly doing that. And they're like, oh, we brought a heater and a kotatsu. And he's like, if you turn that on, it's over. So then I felt so bad for Ikateru. And I think that that's what makes it, I think that that contributed to Ikateru. I think Ikateru, like, nearly overheating and having such a hard time contributed to Kumatani, like, getting fired up because Kumatani likes Ikateru. And so Ikateru was clearly the one struggling the most out of the whole day. Like, he didn't want to sing, and he was like, I thought he was going to faint. And the director kept getting onto him, and it felt like the kitten in the box getting kicked was Ikateru getting, like, yelled at by the director. I feel like Kumatani was comparing those two moments, except this time Kumatani reined it in and was like, I'm not going to punch him, but I'm going to be mad about it because this is a mite bit ridiculous. So yeah, and then they try to sing, and I can't even imagine singing in this. Cannot even imagine, as they're in this Christmas clothes, like, sweating their butts off. And Ikateru tries to, like, go Super Saiyan and get into the moment and be like, okay, it's winter, I've got to channel it, be a method actor. And Tadano's like, are you kidding? Like, what? That's some serious. She's like, don't overdo yourself. Don't overdo it. It's dangerous. And then I love when he says, he's like, you're right, I can't do it. And she's like, of course. I like that they sing the Uramichi Oniisan. So then we have Kumatani has been quietly sitting throughout this episode, not saying a damn word because he's just stewing, right? I love the snowman that they gave to Uramichi to draw on. The snowman is cute, but Uramichi, you drew the little bird beak for the chicken from your dreams. Why couldn't you add a carrot nose to the snowman? Why does it have a human face? What are you doing, Uramichi? You can't even draw the snowman right. They're going to market the shit out of it. And then Usahara, I like that Usahara gets the banana from the one girl that's on set. And he's like, oh, Inoshita. He's like, oh, Inoshita said earlier, you know, here's a banana for you. And Uramichi's like, well, why don't you just eat it? And he's like, I'm treasuring it. The thing about it is, we know Inoshita from previous episodes when they've talked, she's not interested in Usahara because she said that at the bath scene at the sauna, the bathhouse that they went to on the company trip. She's like, oh, I'm not really interested in him, but he doesn't know that. And then she's like, I need you to eat that banana because we're going to use the peel for a skit. And basically confirming that she just gave him the banana because it's part of the set. And he's like, oh. So yeah, then the director gets onto them and is like, I have the kotatsu here. They don't have power on, so just sit by them. But they're so hot and sweaty. And again, Kumatani is just sitting there, like, stewing, boiling. I liked that Usahara's little ear kind of fell over because they were so hot. And then the cicadas, and they're like, look at the snowflake. What would you drink at a time like this? And I like that Uramichi and Tadano are like, cold beer. And even, like, poor Ikateru's like, well, I would have, like, a cream soda. And they're like, well, that's cute, but wrong. And he's like, I just want a cream soda. I really like this show has an adult character that doesn't drink all the time, because there's a lot of friends I have that are sober, and I'm kind of, like, in that I rarely drink anymore. But I like kind of this normalizing of it's okay if you don't drink as an adult. It's fine. And you can be going through an existential crisis and not drink, and it's fine. And Ikateru is one of those characters. And then the moment, like, that's it. The director, like, Kumatani is like, I'm done. We're not having a bonfire anymore. And he takes his suit. And I love that he, like, just thrusts Usahara back. And Uramichi's like, shit. And then he's like, I can't. I like how he worded it, too. He's like, I just can't figure out how Kumao would perform this song. Why don't you get in this bear suit and tell me how you think it should be done? And just to show him how hot it is, and being like, look how toasty it is. Please show me, Director-san. And they're all like, oh my God. And yeah, he puts him in the suit, and he falls over and passes out. And they're like, at his previous job, he threw a punch at his abusive boss and got fired. It happened twice. And then, yeah, they're sitting there waiting to see what's going to happen as they can soak up the AC. Now, the one part that he said was, he goes, what does he say there? Like, Uzari's like, it's like we went on a trip in order to reconfirm how nice our own home is. And then Ikateru is like, oh, well, what was that? And he's like, oh, never mind. He's like, it sounded like it was kind of off. And then he's, no, what was that? What did you mean? So I can't decide if that joke is supposed to be because Ikateru's never, like, had trips out with friends and stuff. And he's trying to, like, get Usahara to take him on a trip. I can't figure out what the joke is. I don't know. Maybe y'all in the comments can tell me. And she's like, yesterday was really rough. The thing about it is that the director, I think, realizes the conditions he was putting his crew through after Kumatani showed him. And so he's like, oh, well, we won't go back and do that again because, you know, that was a bit much. And it's like, yeah. So I feel like what Kumatani did in this episode was show the director, be like, you're abusing us a little bit. You're just a little bit, and this is unnecessary, don't you think? And honestly, though, I mean, with the work conditions, I'm surprised the director didn't get in trouble. So maybe that's Kumatani was kind of enlightening them, being like, you could get in trouble for doing this to us. Like, it's its own form of harassment. And he's like, how about we don't? And the director's like, oh, yeah, you're right. Everything's fine. I was afraid he was going to get reprimanded because I kind of talk about punishment. But it seems like he gets off pretty scot-free because he was just pointing out how ridiculous their conditions were and the circumstances of it. And instead, the director gets on to the girl and the guy with the sign. It says, what could you have done? Anyone would have hit that guy. And with heat like that, you can't think straight either. And then Ikateru's worried that Kumatani will be punished, and they all said they would testify so that you could keep your job. He's like, I wouldn't do anything reckless for something like this. And then Tadano asks why he got fired, and he says, well, that's because I got ticked off at the other job. And she's like, oh, that's the reason? I like that Ikateru is not even thinking. He's just thinking about, like, an onigiri guy leading his onigiri dog. And then the guy's like, okay, we're about to start shooting. So then the one girl asks, what's up with harassment? And he's like, and Uramichi's like, wow, we're bringing this up now? What timely content we have. I really like his explanation here, though. Because she's like, you don't know what harassment means, even if you're an adult? And the way he explains it is like, that word, can take on a life of its own as a concept and start changing. And she's like, is the word harassment like that? He's like, as for harassment, it hasn't just taken on a life of its own. It's gotten out of control. And then she's like, oh, well, out of control? That sounds scary. And he's like, it was named by adults who got confused because they couldn't follow the principle that you shouldn't do things that you don't want others to do to you. So basically, Uramichi's like, yeah, harassment was a term coined because people couldn't follow the rules and couldn't just treat people nicely. People had to be idiots. So that's why this term got created to address it. And then he's like, which is a simple rule that you learn in nursery school. Yeah, exactly. It's like, why can't you just leave people alone and not be dumb? Like, you learn that in nursery school, so why can't you do it? Oh. And they're like, well, why do they name things when they get confused? And he's like, well, adults are afraid of transparent things because they can't see them. So they put a color called name on it to make it visible as a first step. I love that explanation. He's like, adults don't like things that they can't describe and identify as something. So they have to label it in order to identify it. That's such a good way of phrasing that, Uramichi. He's really good at talking to these kids. But in return, the word becomes stronger now because it has a name. Again, I like, because Japanese culture, I've watched several shows at this point, like Monster, like Pluto, lots of Urasawa works, but also other series where your name has a big tie to your identity and it gives you power. I mean, think of, Studio Ghibli's Spirited Away, like a name has a big part in that movie. And so I love this idea of how Uramichi explains it by saying that adults can't comprehend things they can't label. So they have to give it a name in order to identify it. But the problem is once you identify it, it becomes stronger than it actually should be. So Uramichi's so good at explaining to little kids, right? He's so good at this. But it becomes stronger now that it has a name. So adults who are slow can no longer control it or catch it. Oh. And then the girl asked, are adults stupid? And he says, if they weren't, harassment would have been long extinct. He's like, yeah, adults can be stupid. Oh. And she's like, oh, like dinosaurs? And he's like dinosaurs. And he says, the truth is, no matter how stupid the person is, you shouldn't punch them. But some idiots won't get it unless they're punched. I love that. He's like, look, violence is not the answer. But for some people, they're not going to understand unless you do get violent with them. He's like, though it's a confusing society, you kids will be thrown into such a world when you become adults. I like that Uzahara was like nodding off and Kumatani was like looking at Uramichi like, thank you for this moment. And then as we zoom in on his bare head, it's like, it's so cute, but I love the way they portrayed them going out for drinks. And they're at this bar and his boss is like making him come to the bar and they're all wearing these masks. Like the boss has this cheerful mask on. The women have these cheerful masks and Kumatani's just looks very indifferent. So they're at this bar and Kumatani seems a bit annoyed that this guy is all over him. His boss is just like doing this. And then there's this cat in the box that says, please bring me home with you. And the boss like just jokes about the cat with the ladies and he starts kicking it. And I'm like, look, Kumatani being a cat man, we established that back when he was fishing for the cat, the black cat at the beginning. I'm like, I always feel that myself and several people I talk to, if you hurt a person in a movie, it's like, okay, there's reasons and things like that. But if you hurt an animal in a movie that was just minding its own business and being innocent, shame on you. So this guy kicking a box with an abandoned cat in it, what was the point of that, you dick? Like, that was so mean. And he kept doing it over and over again. And Kumatani, like, the girls didn't stop him. And Kumatani just says, like, he just couldn't take it anymore. And he punched him. And then we cut from him being like that shot of him angry. And then cutting from that to the shot of him happy with the cat. And like licking the little bowl of milk. Like it was worth it for him to punch him. He's like, no. He wasn't going to get it unless I stopped him. And it was worth it. Oh. So, interesting to note, it doesn't seem like Uramichi or Usahara worked with him before he came to the kids show. So I'm guessing Uramichi probably got to the kids show and then Usahara and Kumao followed him over there. Oh my gosh, that moment. I also like if you ship Ikateru and Kumatani, then you have the white cat and the white dog together. Also, when he yelled at the director, I know that Kumatani's voice actor is Gojo from Jujutsu Kaisen. The voice there sounded a little bit like it. I was like, oh, all right. Just let your Gojo show just a bit. And then we cut back and she's like, is it okay to punch an idiot who wouldn't get it unless they're punched? And he's like, well, hurting someone also means hurting yourself. So I love this piece of advice where he tells her, as long as you know that, you'll be able to decide on your own when the time comes. So basically he says that, you know, you should never punch people, but some people aren't going to get it unless they are punched. That's just how the world works. It's a cruel society. And when she asks, well, should I punch somebody if they need it? And he's like, just know that if you punch someone, you're also hurting yourself. Like Kumatani did punch that boss, but he had to resign because of it. So he's like, you have to make the choice when you get old enough, is this punch worth it? Is it necessary? Oh my gosh. And then Kumatani hearing him say it. Yes, I love that little moment. And then of course Izahara is like, oh, I fell asleep. And he's like, shut up and stay asleep for the rest of your life. There is a tiny smidgen part of me that does like to ship Ikateru, or not Ikateru. There is a part, I mean, obviously I ship Ikateru and Kuwatami, but there is a part of me that ships Kumatani with Uramichi. There is a part that makes me ship those two together because they're definitely like have, I think, one of the closer bonds in the series. And then Izahara's like, oh, well, that's verbal abuse. It's power harassment. And he's like, no, you mean moral harassment. Like, it has all these layers, right? And then he asks for a cigarette. he's like, just one. And he says, the one thing I remember, he's like, I don't remember why I punched that guy, but I remember that one thing I remember is that the cigarette after slamming the letter of resignation on his desk was the best I'd ever tasted in my life. And he's like, okay, I see. So yeah, it's like, now luckily Kumatani is not fired from the company. He just made the director kind of have a reality check. But I like that him having the cigarette after this moment was the satisfaction, like with the boss at the other job, it was the satisfaction he had where he's like, I was satisfied. I finally spoke my mind. I did what I wanted to do. I said my piece. I did what I thought needed to be done. And that resignation letter was like so satisfying because I went out on my own terms. And I feel like rather than getting fired in this case, he didn't punch anybody, but instead he's having the cigarette, almost like a little mini celebration, being like, I did things on my own terms and I'm proud of that. And I'm okay with it. I didn't realize that he used to smoke, but I'm glad that he doesn't smoke anymore. So that's pretty good. I'm glad that that's not the case. I'm glad that he got out of that. So good. Oh my God. But yeah, Kumatani. Oh, Kumatani, he jumped up there for me. I was like, yes, please. I was so proud of Kumatani in this episode. And so then we have the end credits, which came so early, but they come back, they're walking into work, and the director's like, it looks wonderful. And the fact that the director's like this masterpiece, they didn't put any budget into this at all. Like, they didn't even put snow. They just CGI'd some snowflakes. It's like there's even shots of them in the background, the crew. It's so low budget. Like, they didn't even try with it. And they're like, oh, it's done. Take a look. And they're like, but you just like rushed through that. And they're like, well, that was super good too, but this one's even better. Our hard work outdoors in the heat was worthwhile. And it's just like, it's so unnecessary. Like, they CGI'd some snowflakes in the air, but like the playground equipment is still there. And then they reused the shot of Usahara falling like twice. Oh my God. So the song that they sing is SUBZERO Spiral. Trodden down snow is super dangerous. You'll fall flat just like that. And you can't get up. It's super dangerous. I ache in every part of my body and my heart. They ache. I like that shot of Kumatani straightening up his hair. And like, they were super scary. My proposal fell flat just like that. And it's just like, none of this was needed. They didn't have to be outside at all. It's just like, it's like the director didn't want to spend any more time on it and was embarrassed by it. So like, let's just kick it out and get it out early. I love Miyata Mamoru being like, say, like in the song. That's so cute. Him giving Uramichi the thumbs up. Then there's the snowman that looks like so traumatic. They're like, isn't that what you told me? Say what you think. Oh my God. The air in the room froze white. But yeah, there's just like all the CGI, like a cloudy midwinter sky. Oh my God. They're like, I just wanted warmth. That's all. And they're like, my hand had the shivers. And then it shows them with all these CGI cokes. Like, just the most useless. Oh my God. And then they show them the wind whistles through my wallet. And there's a second crew behind them. And I guess that's where the second crew behind them is when they like reshot indoors after the fact that they came back inside. And like, echoes emptily in the night, the bragging of the older staff. Oh my God, like this is the most hodgepodge, terrible music video. And that's it. And they're all just like, no. They're like, this is terrible. It's like just garbage. Wow. And the one guy with the sign is like, it looks really wintry. Yeah, it looks wintry, right? It looks so wintry. It looks super wintry. And then Kumatani, they're like, oh, did you cut your hair by chance? As he has the bear suit on. And he's like, let's get started with the shoot. Mm-hmm. Yep. And then at that point, they're like, how long are you going to be excited by such a pathetic music video? And they're like, wow, sure changed his tune real quick. Mm-hmm. I love Ikateru's having like the fried onigiri in his mind. After that, the director's absurd demands got a little bit more reasonable. I love that. I love that Kumatani stood up for himself and it allowed the director to get a little bit of humble pie. I'm so glad. I thought it would be Uramichi, but I think Kumatani was much better suited for that encounter and for that moment because at least he got his point across and didn't resort to violence. So, awesome. Awesome! Man, that episode was crazy, but Kumatani is like up there in one of my favorite characters now for the cat scene and everything. Uh-huh. Yes, indeed. So, this was so freaking cute. I loved it. But yeah, so I'm super excited to see what's going to happen with episode 11. We only have 3 episodes left, if you can believe it. But this episode, it's just like take the beach episode and just make it even more traumatic. But it's like everybody finally reached their breaking point. So we'll see. Kumatani reached his breaking point. Now we got to see if Ikateru, Uramichi, Tadano, or Usahara will as well over the course of the next 3 episodes. I don't think Ikateru will because he's Ikateru, but the other 3, we'll have to wait and see. Plus, I was going to say this. I feel like the director also didn't fire Kumatani because he knows how popular the show is and how much the kids like Kumatani. And it's like, you can't fool these kids, so you can't just get rid of him. Right? So there's some rapport that's been built there. So anyway, I hope you all are excited and have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, stay cool, stay indoors in the AC. Don't be getting out in this heat like they did. And I'll see you all next week for another episode of Uramichi Oniisan. Bye.